Derby County have been linked to the signing of former Rams player Andi Weimann, who's currently contracted at Blackburn Rovers. Now, the link comes from Derby County journalist Lee Curtis of the Derby Telegraph. Now, he has been offered a new deal by Blackburn Rovers at the end of his current contract, but no decision on that has been made, and he's currently on the sidelines with a meniscus injury similar to the one that Sondre Langas suffered. Now, a little bit more on Andi Weimann. He is 33 years old, obviously a forward player. He's made 26 appearances for his national team, Austria, scoring 2 goals. He's valued at 800,000 euros, and over the course of his career, he's played a ton, and I mean a ton of football. 559 games, 128 goals, 60 assists, and 36,738 minutes. He's played in a range of different competitions, including the types of the Europa League, as well as playing in the Championship playoffs, as well as the Premier League. Now, over the course of the time since leaving Derby County, he's played for the likes of Bristol City, he's played for the likes of West Brom, and more recently, he has played for obviously Blackburn Rovers. Now, he made 88 appearances for Derby County in a previous spelling from 2015-16 until the end of the 2017-18 season, where he moved on to pastures new with Bristol City. In that time period, he scored 9 goals and collected 6 assists, but ultimately I felt he wasn't really maximised by the Derby County coaches at the time. Now, if we look at this season for Andi Weimann, he's not necessarily been a starter, but he's made 34 appearances, scoring 9 goals, collecting 2 assists with just 1,652 minutes. I believe he only started 14 of those 34 games for Blackburn Rovers, and he's played a range of different positions, including both wing positions in that number 10 role, as well as playing as a centre forward. And his versatility is one of the main reasons why I'm attracted to this signing that John Eustace is quite clearly looking at, and it's because he can play on the right, he can play on the left, he can play throughout the midfield as well, which is obviously really important. And he can obviously play as that centre forward, which I think for Derby County is really important, because Derby County need to add to the depth in those areas, whether it be on the wings, whether it be through the middle. We need players that can play in those positions. Now, a lot of people are going to say he's 33 years old. Should Derby County really be signing him? And in my opinion, I don't think we're signing Andi Weimann to be sort of a 46 starter season player. I don't think that at all. I think we're signing Weimann with the impression of improving those wide areas, improving the options through the middle as well. And I think if he makes 15-20 starts this season at Derby County, should he make the move, I think that would be a positive transfer. Now, I'm not saying he's going to go on and score 20 goals next season. I'm not going to go and say he's going to get 20 assists, but he's certainly a player who, in my opinion, could improve this Derby County squad. I think he's better than Mendes Lang. I think he's better than Caden Jackson. I think he's probably better than Corey Blackett-Taylor, given the fact that Weimann has played 30 times this season and Corey Blackett-Taylor has spent most of his time on the sidelines. So it's one of those for me where, yes, you probably look at it and go, Derby County probably need younger, more potential options, but getting those options in is going to cost a pretty penny, and it's going to be hard to get those deals done, especially this early in the season. And as Stephen Pearce said in his interview the other night, our early moves are going to be based on depth options. Cody Drammer, Andi Weimann, Danny Bath, Angus Gunn, all players that we've been linked to across the course of the last week or so, and they're all players who I think would improve Derby County's squad as a whole, but doesn't mean they necessarily have to be starters for the club. You look at, obviously, with Andi Weimann, you look at those wide options, I think he's better than at least 2 out of the 3 that we have. You look at the forward options, you would put him ahead of Dejan Brown, and based on Championship credibility, you probably put him ahead of Lars Jorgen Selverson at the moment, or in a front 2 with Jorgen Selverson, depending on what John Eustace actually does plan to do going forward with this Derby County team. Now, obviously, when we talk about the link to Andi Weimann, it's really important that we do we have to discuss sort of how poor it was when he was with us first off, because it was sort of a poor sort of deal when he came to Derby County the first time round. We signed him from, I believe it was Aston Villa, and in my opinion, he never really played his true position, 48 times on the right, 28 times on the left, 9 goals, 5 assists. Obviously, only played 7 times through the middle. And I do think that was one of the problems that Derby County faced with Andreas Weimann. Obviously, ended up becoming more of like a bench player, which is why he only played just under 5,000 minutes as a Derby County player in 88 appearances. And if you look at like is that his final few appearances, 2015? No, if we go to his final appearances for Derby County, it was it was as a starter. And that is sort of the conversation that you have to have, is he sort of found a rhythm with Derby County, moved on to Bristol City. Was it the right move for Derby to keep him? I don't know. It's obviously... it's a big discussion that could be had when we let go of Weimann. I think it was more to do with the circumstances regarding the finances behind the scenes than it was to do with whether he was good enough to stay or not. And obviously you look at the players we then went to bring in sort of for that season and beyond. Obviously Derby County brought in some really, really good players and spent quite a decent chunk of money. Now, do I believe that Andreas Weimann is a signing Derby County need to make this summer? I don't necessarily think it's a need, but I think if John Eustace believes that it's the right move to make, I'll absolutely back him. He brought him in at Blackburn Rovers and had a better goal return than I think all of our forward line bar Jerry Yates this season, which obviously shows that he's still got a lot to offer in the Championship. And if Derby County can keep him fit and keep him available, I certainly believe that he could go on to have a really successful season in the Championship. But the big question then has to be is... how are Derby County going to make it work financially? Because that is sort of the problem that Derby County have in that aspect when it comes to forwards. Because you obviously look at Mendes Lang, you look at a player like Caden Jackson, you look at Corey Blackett-Taylor. Are we going for Andreas Weimann as part of a forward two with Jorgen Selverson? Or are we going for Weimann to be part of those wide options, a backup option to the striker? That's obviously sort of the big question that needs to be answered. And it will be answered as we go through sort of the transfer window. But obviously no decisions have yet been made in regards to signings. I personally believe that John Eustace will have a clear idea of what he wants to do. And I do believe that Andreas Weimann is an improvement on what Derby County currently have in the building. Now, obviously, a lot of people have their opinions, and we've seen a lot of people give their opinions over the course of the last couple of hours since John Eustace, since this link has been announced. And a lot of people think it's sort of a backward step, talking about sort of his age and things like that. And I don't necessarily disagree. I don't think it's a backward step. I personally believe that he's better than what we've got. So how can that be considered a backward step? That's my personal opinion. Now, I get it, it's probably more related to his age than it is to anything. But for me, there's a lot of conversations that have to be had around age and things like that. We signed David McGoldrick when he was 35 and he went on to have score his first 2 hat-tricks of his career, obviously at League One level. But you get my drift. And there's no reason for me why this Andreas Weimann signing cannot work for Derby County. Now, you can obviously let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, you turn on that notification bell, hit the like button as well to push this video to brand new audiences, and I'll catch you in my next video.